Okay, good morning. Welcome to Mrs. Riley's Maths videos. We are looking at some more applied arithmetic, some more financial maths, and we're looking at compound interest, applied arithmetic. So we're looking at compound interest, and what I want to do today is to introduce you to what that's about and how to use the formula that we're given in our formula tables. So I want you to imagine that you go into a bank and you ask to borrow from the bank. You ask to borrow €5,000 because you have decided that you want to get a scooter, a moped to zip about town. So you decide you want to borrow from the bank €5,000, and they say to you, yes, of course you can borrow €5,000, but we're going to have to get you to give us some money for the privilege of borrowing it. So you're going to borrow €5,000 from the bank, but it's going to cost you money to borrow. So they don't want to be out of pocket. At the end of it, they want to gain something from you borrowing from them, and that money that it costs you to borrow is called interest. So for instance, they might have said at one stage, you can borrow 5,000, and what you borrow is called the principal. I can never remember which way around it is. Is it that way around? Principal of €5,000, and we're going to charge you interest. And how we're going to work out the interest is we're going to charge you 10% of what you borrow, and that is called the interest rate. So the cost to you, okay, what you'll have to repay in the future is €5,000 plus €5,000 times 10%. So altogether, for borrowing this money, we want you to pay back €5,000 plus 500. So altogether, you're going to repay to the bank €5,500. So then you've got to decide, well, actually, is it worth it? Would it be better to save up my money and buy it when I've saved up €5,000, or will I borrow from the bank and pay back this extra €500? So this is often called, as I say there, the future amount, what you're going to owe in the future. We had an interest rate. This interest rate is called I when we deal with it. The principal, which is what we borrow, is called P. Okay, and the other thing that will come up later on is that we'll find out it's actually it's just AL. I was distracted there looking that up, so it's AL. Sorry about that. What will matter is it depends how long you borrow it for. So how long you borrow for, and that of course is in time, which is T. Okay, so basically what's happening is you're going to the bank, you're borrowing the principal, so that's what you're borrowing. You're then paying it back with interest to the bank, and that interest is a percentage of the principal. Okay, so let's look at this for an example, using what's called compound interest. So the difference between that's kind of what's called simple interest, where you just find a percentage and add it on, and that's the cost of borrowing, that's the interest. But generally what we deal with in real life is what's called compound interest. So compound interest is saying that for every year that you borrow it, you're going to pay a cost based on what you owe at that point. Okay, so we'll work it out without a formula to start with, and hopefully that'll be helpful to see where it comes from. So what happens is let's go back to this example here. You're borrowing €5,000 at an interest rate of let's say 10%. Okay, for 3 years. Okay, so at year one you borrowed €5,000. That's at the start of year one, at the end of year 1, you have to pay an extra 10% of 5,000, which is €500. So adding on 500. So now at the end of year 1, assuming you haven't repaid anything, you now owe €5,500. So at the start of year 2, you owe €5,500. At the end of year 2, you're going to owe an extra 10% of that, which is €550. So we're going to add that on. 5, 10, 6,050. So at the end of year 2, we owe 6,050. So at the start of year 3, we owe 6,050. At the end of year 3, we're going to owe that plus interest. So 10% of 6,000, whatever, is 605. So I'm going to add that on. So we're adding this on each time. 556,655 euro. Okay, so having borrowed €5,000, we now owe 6,655. So that's what we owe at the end. And our interest, which we can get by adding these three up, 500 plus 550 plus 605, which equals 1050 plus 60. Let's see. 500, 550 and 605 is going to be 1655 interest. Or of course we could have worked that out by saying it's 6655 what we owe at the end, from take away 5,000 what we borrowed, which will be 1655 in interest. Okay, so hopefully you could see there what's happening. Now, obviously that's fine for 3 years. Okay, we can work it out year by year, add it on. But if we go on for any length of time beyond 3 years, and often, for instance, mortgages and other loans are taken out for 10 or 20 years, there should be an easier way of doing it. So let's flip over to the next page. And thankfully there is a formula for compound interest, and you'll have seen it in my classroom at the top over the board. The formula for compound interest, which is in your tables book, is F is equal to P by 1 plus I to the power of T. Now I'll explain all this. So F is equal to the future value, or sometimes I think of it as the final amount. P is equal to the principal, which is the amount you borrow, or it could be the amount you invest. We haven't talked about investments yet, but they work the same way. It's just that the bank gives you money rather than you giving the bank extra money. 1, this is just the number 1. I refers to the interest rate as a decimal. We'll talk about that now in a second. And T refers to the time, usually in years. So let's take our example from a moment ago. We had 5,000 borrowed for 3 years at a rate of 10%. So example, €5,000 borrowed for 3 years at a rate of 10%. Okay, so let's fill in these values here. This is our formula we're going to use. F is equal to P by 1 plus I to the power of T. So F is what we're trying to find, the future amount. So the question, I suppose, I haven't put a question. How much do we owe at the end of 3 years? Okay, that's the question. That's what we're trying to find. P is the principal, which is €5,000, because it's what we borrowed. I is the interest rate as a decimal, so it's 10%. Let's just do it over here. 10%, which is 10 over 100, which, as you hopefully know, is 0.1 as a decimal. So 0.1 and t is the time in years, which is 3. So using our formula, we can work out that f, the future amount, is equal to p, which is 5,000, by 1 plus I, 1 plus 0.1 to the power of t, which is 3. So 5,000 for what we're borrowing, 1 plus I, 1 plus 0.1 to the power of 3. So how do we work that out then? I just need to find my calculator. So let's work that out. So it's going to be, now this, just be careful here, because you have to do all of this. Do this first. Okay, now you can do it on your calculator in one go, but just be careful how you do it. So it's 5,000 multiplied by bracket. See that, multiplied by bracket, 1 plus 0.1 to the power, and that's this button here, to the power of 3 equals 6,655 euro, which is what we found when we did it longhand. 6,655. Okay, so that's the final amount, or the future amount, future value of what we owe. If I wanted to find out how much of that is interest, then of course I just do 6,655 minus 5,000, which is what, 1655 euro. So that's the interest that I owe. Okay, I hope that's useful.